If you're on Social Security or getting close to it, there's a good chance you've never even heard of the one form that could quietly be costing you money every single month. It's not something the Social Security office goes out of their way to tell you about. There's no big announcement, no letter that says, "Hey, you might want to file this." Most people only find out about it by accident, usually after talking to a friend who happened to stumble onto it themselves. Or worse, they never find out at all, and they simply miss out year after year without ever realizing it. Today we're going to break down exactly what this overlooked form is, why so many seniors miss it, who it actually applies to, and how you can figure out whether this is something you should be looking into for your own situation. Stick around until the end, because I'll also cover a few of the most common mistakes people make when dealing with Social Security paperwork, mistakes that can end up costing real money if they go unnoticed. Let's start with the basics. Social Security is one of those systems that feels simple on the surface. You paid into it your whole working life, and now you get a monthly check. But underneath that simple idea is a surprisingly complex system full of forms, rules, exceptions, and options that most people never fully learn about. Because honestly, nobody ever sits them down and explains it clearly. The Social Security Administration processes millions of claims every single year, and while their staff does their best, the system relies heavily on individuals knowing which forms apply to their specific situation. If you don't know a form exists, you're not going to ask about it, and the SSA generally isn't going to volunteer that information unless you bring it up first. This is exactly how so many seniors end up missing out on benefits they were fully entitled to receive. Now let's talk about the form itself and why it tends to fly under the radar. One of the most commonly overlooked pieces of paperwork involves situations where someone's circumstances have changed since they first filed for benefits. Things like a change in marital status, a change in income, eligibility for benefits based on a spouse's work record, or even eligibility for benefits based on a former spouse's record if a marriage lasted a certain number of years. Many people don't realize that if you were married for a significant length of time and later divorced, you may still be eligible for benefits based on your ex-spouse's earnings record, without that having any effect on their benefits at all. This surprises a lot of people, because they assume divorce completely separates their financial history from their former spouses, but Social Security has specific provisions for exactly this kind of situation. The problem is, unless someone specifically knows to ask about this, they'll never be told it's an option, and they'll simply continue collecting a smaller benefit than what they might actually qualify for. Another commonly missed situation involves widows and widowers. If your spouse passed away, you may be eligible for survivor benefits, and depending on your age and circumstances, it may actually be more advantageous to claim survivor benefits first and switch to your own retirement benefit later, or vice versa, depending on which one grows larger over time. This is a nuanced decision that depends heavily on your specific age, your spouse's earning history, and your own work record, but the key issue is that many widows and widowers are never walked through these options clearly. They assume there's only one path forward, when in reality, there may be a more advantageous filing strategy available to them. Let's also talk about a situation that catches a lot of people off guard, working while collecting benefits before reaching full retirement age. If you start collecting Social Security early and continue working, there are specific earnings limits that can temporarily reduce your benefit amount. However, and this is the part most people don't realize, that reduction isn't necessarily permanent. Once you reach full retirement age, your benefit gets recalculated to account for those months where money was withheld, meaning you may actually be entitled to a higher monthly benefit later on than you were initially told. A lot of seniors don't realize this adjustment happens automatically or don't realize they should double-check that it was calculated correctly, and that's exactly the kind of detail that can slip through the cracks without anyone noticing. Now, here's the important part, and I want to be very clear about this. I am not a Social Security representative, and every single person's situation is different based on age, work history, marital status, health, and countless other individual factors. What we're doing today is raising awareness, not giving you a definitive answer about your specific case. The purpose of this video is to help you recognize that these kinds of overlooked options exist, so that you know to ask the right questions when you contact the Social Security Administration directly, or better yet, schedule an appointment with a Social Security representative who can review your exact situation and tell you definitively what applies to you. Let's talk about why this information gap exists in the first place, because it's honestly one of the most frustrating parts of dealing with government benefit systems. The Social Security Administration handles an enormous volume of claims, and their representatives are often working through standardized processes designed to move efficiently through common situations. If your circumstances fall outside the most typical, straightforward category, whether that's due to divorce, widowhood, disability history, or unusual work patterns, it becomes your responsibility to ask specific, pointed questions in order to uncover options that might apply to you. This isn't necessarily anyone being intentionally unhelpful. It's simply the reality of a massive government system trying to serve an enormous and diverse population efficiently. The unfortunate side effect is that people who don't know the right questions to ask often end up settling for the most basic, default option, even when a more advantageous choice might have been available to them. So let's talk about practical steps you can take to make sure you're not missing out on anything you might be entitled to. The first step is requesting a full benefits review directly from the Social Security Administration. You can do this by calling their main line, visiting a local office in person, or in some cases, setting up an appointment specifically to discuss your options in detail rather than simply processing a standard claim. When you go into this conversation, come prepared with specific questions. Ask directly, based on my marital history, are there any additional benefit options I should be aware of? Ask, if my income has changed since I originally filed, does that affect my current benefit calculation? And if you're a widow or widower, specifically ask, what are my options for survivor benefits, and would it make sense to claim those before switching to my own retirement benefit? These direct, specific questions push the conversation beyond the standard script and often reveal options that wouldn't have come up otherwise. The second practical step is creating and regularly checking your online Social Security account. This portal allows you to view your personal earnings history, your estimated benefit amounts under different filing scenarios, and any official notices sent to you. Reviewing this information periodically, especially as you approach retirement age or experience a major life change like divorce or the loss of a spouse, can help you catch discrepancies or missed opportunities before they become long-term problems. The third step, and this one is often overlooked, is considering a consultation with a financial advisor or Social Security specialist who focuses specifically on retirement benefit optimization. While this isn't necessary for everyone, if your situation involves multiple potential filing strategies, a former spouse's work record, survivor benefit decisions, or complex income history, a specialist can help you map out the most advantageous path forward based on your specific numbers, something that a general phone representative may not have the time or specialized training to fully walk you through. Now let's talk about a few common mistakes that tend to compound this issue, because avoiding these can save you significant time, money, and frustration down the road. The first common mistake is filing for benefits without exploring all available options first. Many people file as soon as they become eligible simply because they assume earlier is always better, when in reality, depending on your specific financial situation, delaying benefits even by a year or two can sometimes result in a meaningfully higher monthly amount for the rest of your life. This decision depends entirely on your individual circumstances, but it's worth exploring before locking in your filing date. The second common mistake is assuming that once you file, everything is set in stone and no longer worth reviewing. In reality, life circumstances change, marital status can change, income can change, and your benefits situation should be periodically reviewed to make sure you're still receiving what you're entitled to, especially after a major life event. The third common mistake is relying solely on informal advice from friends or family members, instead of verifying information directly with the Social Security Administration or a qualified specialist. While hearing about someone else's experience can be a helpful starting point, and honestly, that's exactly how a lot of people first learn that these overlooked options even exist. Every situation is different, and assuming your circumstances match someone else's exactly can lead to confusion or missed opportunities. Always verify your specific eligibility and options directly with official sources rather than assuming a friend's situation applies equally to yours. Now, I want to bring this back to the bigger picture, because at the heart of this conversation is something much simpler than paperwork and technicalities. It's about making sure you and the people you love are receiving the full support you've earned after decades of working, contributing, and paying into this system. Social Security wasn't designed to be confusing on purpose, but the system is large, complex, and constantly evolving, and it's simply not realistic to expect every single person to automatically know every single option available to them without asking the right questions. That's exactly why conversations like this one matter, not to alarm you, not to suggest that something is definitely wrong with your current benefits, but to gently remind you that a quick phone call, a scheduled appointment, or a simple online review could reveal information that makes a real difference in your financial stability moving forward. If you or someone you love, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor, is currently receiving Social Security benefits, or is getting close to filing, consider this your gentle nudge to double-check everything. Ask the specific questions we covered today. Request a full benefits review. Look into your marital history and how it might affect your eligibility. Consider whether a consultation with a specialist might be worthwhile based on your particular circumstances. None of this requires expert-level financial knowledge. It simply requires a willingness to ask a few extra questions rather than assuming the very first answer you received is automatically the complete picture. Because at the end of the day, this is your money, earned through years, often decades, of hard work, and you deserve to receive every bit of support you're rightfully entitled to. Don't let confusing paperwork or a lack of awareness stand between you and the benefits you've spent your working life contributing toward. Take the time, ask the questions, and make sure nothing is being left on the table. A single conversation today could make a real difference in your financial peace of mind for years to come.